Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidel. Welcome to our show, Asia in Review, with Rusell Leu, who's an attorney, a Hawaii attorney practicing in Beijing with a multinational firm called Shepherd Mullen. I've met some of those guys. They're very multinational. Yes. Welcome to the show, Russell.
Aloha.
Aloha. So we want to talk about a new mood in China. We're going to capture what's going on here. Last time you were here, which I want to say is like 3-4 months ago, at least that I saw you, you had a gas mask with you, and everybody's been talking, including Brenda Foster, about the problems in breathing. Brenda Foster used to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce, American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. And she was having trouble.
Having trouble coffee, you know.
Okay. Right. Must be the fog here.
Well, the clean air here. There's an effect with clean air. You're mixing it with almond gunk and stuff.
After a while, clean air is no good for you. Can't tolerate it, eh, Russell? So anyway, I guess the first question is how's the pollution?
Well, you know, when I left Beijing, actually, it was a clear sky, sunny blue skies, and for the first time, I could see the.
Can you put that up on here so we can hear you?
Okay.
I want to hear you. Have a soft voice. Oh, better. Okay.
And it was the first time that I could see the mountains that surround Beijing, and you usually don't see them. Many people don't realize that Beijing is surrounded by some mountains. And I took some snapshots, and you can see a clear morning, the actual mountains that surround part of Beijing. So that was astonishing.
That's like my brother. You know, he joined the Navy back in the 60s, and then he was assigned in Long Beach, and he had an apartment. He was an officer, a lawyer. Had an apartment, overlooking, the Pacific Ocean. And he was there 6 months, and one day he woke up in the morning and opened the blinds, and there was Catalina. He had never seen it before. Same thing. He didn't like that. Well, it's worrisome because you don't know how all this pollution is affecting you. And when people talk about the contamination of the food, too, you don't know whether your liver is being eaten or whatever, I don't know what. And I think this is going to catch up with China. Mm-hmm. And people, are going to start saying, look, when you clean up your act, give me a call.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Jay, it's really good for Hawaii because when it came down here, touchdown, there's a lot of Chinese on the plane on this Korean airline flight. For them to see clean air, to smell clean air, it's a different experience. And, that means something good for the economy here.
I hope so. We need to talk about that. In fact, I reserved the whole section of our show to talk about what we can do to make more Chinese come here. Okay, but anyway, let's talk about the mood in China. How's the mood in terms of the government? I mean, for example, this whole thing with the flyover zone over the Senkaku Islands and all this tension that the Chinese government is developing for no real good reason, I think. Mm-hmm. What's all that about? What's going on?
Well, the everyday citizen, I mean, I really don't pay attention so much to that. It's everybody's posturing, and the government, does this because it makes people feel unified, they belong to the country. But for the most part, people are really more into everyday, their lives, running their businesses, making money. And I don't see, on the streets at least, people talking like rhetoric, war. You never see that. In fact, people are more, well, what are we doing in our business, and they're more concerned about their livelihood. So it's...
You don't feel any pressure from that. I mean,
no, I don't.
People are not talking about it, so therefore they're not complaining about it. If they wanted to complain, could they complain, or would there be a price to pay?
Well, I think if they complain, there might be a price to pay. But again, the most important thing is I don't see any domestic riots at the Japan embassy, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. I think there's got to be a political dialogue that has to restart. I believe that it's a leadership thing that's important that needs to be addressed, and it's a political issue more so than an issue with the people. The main thing is people want better lives, and historically the Chinese people don't care that much about the politics. I don't see.
They just want to have a good life.
They want to have a good life like anybody else.
That's not an unreasonable thing. You know what? There was a piece on NPR this morning, Russell, about journalists in China, and now there's a new regimen for the journal. I don't know if you heard about this, but they're given a manual of 700 pages which tells them how to be a journalist and what's important. And then they get a test, a really formidable test, which is largely ideological. And it sort of tests you on whether you got the party line. And in order to be a journalist, you have to have a press card. In China, the government issues the press card, not some press organization. It's the government itself. And so you have to pass the test. And the test is essentially, are you on the party line? Which is a little scary in the sense that it hasn't happened before. Now, there have been a lot of news agencies that the Chinese government controlled and all that, and still are, but this is new. And it's a message to the press, you better toe the mark here or you're not going to be in the press anymore. A little scary. I mean, any reaction to that kind of thing? Is this sort of the ideological, influence or oppression going on?
Well, I think that's a very good observation, Jay, on what's happening in China. I've been watching the last month or so. There's been a lot of dialogue among all the intellectual community and the academics about the right of the journalists to come in here, and there are good arguments both ways. Again, it's a reminder. It's a real reminder that there are still differences in the system that we live in here in the U.S. and in China. There is still a communist party. Again, that doesn't mean that the people in China agree with what's going on.
No, it's a small fraction.
And it's a small fraction. And it also could be the party showing that it's exerting control and management over the people by censoring journalists, as well as there's a big movement where the government is cracking down on lawyers, Chinese lawyers.
Right now.
Right now.
How?
Well, I from what I understand that they will take people into custody, so forth. I'm not that involved in that, but I hear that happens because that happens to the Chinese lawyers, some of them that are very outspoken.
Outspoken about political things.
About political things.
So it's better not to talk about political things.
Well, again, there is sensitive issues that will be very sensitive to government. I think that what you're saying is really a continuing follow-up of the Boshilai crackdown, where the government has realized that even within its own party, that there's dissension, and they are trying to show that they're a consolidated power. Again, how long will this policy will continue? I don't know. And then the other argument is that, from their side, is that you're a guest of the country, and I'm a guest of the country.
Everybody's a guest of the country.
I realize that. And as
Even the Chinese are a guest in the country. Yeah.
And I realize that they will have to handle their issues, and they will do it their way. I don't have any standing or any right to tell them what to do. They have to choose as a people, as a government, and the friction between people and government is their internal problem, and that's something where I really don't get involved.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can afford to, but I'm still going to ask my next question.
Sounds like a doozy.
Well, a week ago, one of our hosts here on Think Tech Asia in Review had a woman by the name of Jennifer Zhang. Jennifer Zhang was a journalist in Beijing. She went to Peking University, which you'll agree with me is like a top school. And she was at the top of her class at Peking University. Later on, she decided she would join, for philosophical reasons, the Falun Gong. And she did. And shortly thereafter, she started getting arrested and held and questioned, and then on one arrest, they sentenced her administratively. I mean, there was no proceeding involved. Somebody ordered her that she had to spend a year in a labor camp, and she did, and it was quite awful. It was torture. It was physical abuse. It was sleep deprivation. It was threats. It was cattle prods, and all kinds of really horrible things. And she survived it, and everybody did. She survived. She noticed that the number of Falun Gong that were being brought to this camp were increasing. She noticed that despite the fact that they were physically abusing and torturing her, they gave her medical examinations very frequently, and she didn't know why. Later found out that is usually connected with organ harvesting. Anyway, she got out, and she got out of the country, and she's in the U.S. now, and she's making a racket about this. And it was I urge you to look at it, a very powerful interview, which, I didn't know this was going to happen, but it was quite something. And what we have is really a statement that organ harvesting is still going on, labor camps are still going on for obviously political reasons. And even though Falun Gong was really no threat until about 10 years ago, it got to be a threat in China for reasons that are really unclear. And it is now punishable by very serious torture punishment, labor camp punishment, where they make teddy bears, by the way, for Kmart. Fairly odd thing. And one of the points that she made was that people would send these letters in the teddy bear box to the U.S., half in English and half in China, saying, I'm being held in a Chinese labor camp and tortured, save me, in the teddy bear box that comes out of Kmart. Any talk about this?
I don't hear about that. It's one thing where in their society, they really, if this practice is going on, you don't see it. The everyday citizen does not see it. It's basically sanitized. You do not see it. You don't see homeless people around. You do see some beggars around on the subways, but you don't see any of this. Again, and I would not be surprised if this continues to this practice. This type of thing, the practice, as Americans, we find it very objectionable, and I understand, sympathize with that. But overall, you don't see it in the society there. I mean, they do this, and nobody sees that. Even when they had Rusell Leu, they took him away someplace. Nobody saw him. Nobody heard, saw him.
Anybody know where he is now?
Well, I don't know where he is. I think he's still he's somewhere in the prison system, in the house arrest. But again, it's a reminder again that things have not developed the rule of law. Things haven't developed as the way we would see it. But remember, there was a famous field marshal in Taiwan who was under house arrest for so many years in Taiwan. He was involved in bringing Mao Zedong and Chiang Kai-shek together in World War II. But it's an element of the society and in a different world how they look at punishment, the whole idea of punishment, where it can be very drastic in the world that we see it in. Again, and I was under the understanding that the organ harvesting was terminated, but if that is going on,
I don't know.
They did come out with a announcement about a year ago that they would change it, that they would not do the organ harvesting.
Well, it could be stopped because her story was from a few years ago.
Right.
It wasn't like really recent, so it could be that announcement
They
came
made an
after.
announcement to the public that they were ceasing that
any
organ harvesting, certain executions, where they execute somebody, they were halting that. So again. But again, China's so large. This could be happening in a very rural part of the country, and nobody would know.
But it would be part of the I mean, is it your sense that the central government controls this kind of thing? This isn't a rural, mayor of some rural town taking the law into his own hands, is it?
No, that would be a central government that would control all of this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about business. How's it doing? Is your firm busy? Is Beijing busy? It's alliteration. Is Beijing busy? I mean, what's happening?
All the firms are busy, and there's certain things that happens in cycles. Xi Jinping, the leader of China, they had a crackdown under the Chinese anti-corruption laws, GlaxoSmithKline, their operations in China, and that triggered a number of investigations of multinationals and Chinese companies as well. And also on the U.S. side, that triggered a whole slew of FCPA, or Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, investigations. So that side of the business has been busy for all the foreign law firms, believe it or not.
If you like that kind of thing for busy.
Well, it takes a lot of people to go through records and investigate, and then finding out things. And it's interesting because we were involved in one, but what happened was that when the person was under investigation questioning by the general counsel, after we did a review of records, and then this person started to name other people who are involved in this potential corruption practices. So.
But the point, I guess, is that there's still corruption happening. Otherwise, this reaction wouldn't happen. Yeah.
There's still that still does happen. that still does happen.
Yeah.
But historically in any Asian society, this has been, a practice, whether it's Chinese, Japanese, or Korean. There's always
Sure.
this kind of issues.
Sure. And, well, but it's very interesting because, as you and I both know, there's a lot of lawyers coming up, a lot of China law firms, not the multinationals, but the China law firms that feel they want a piece of the multinational pie, and they'd rather just insinuate themselves, between the American client and the Chinese system, instead of having the multinational insinuate itself, and take a piece of the pie. We've had a few of them here. There are a couple now that are embedded in Cade, Shuddy. Shackley Ruffero has been, real active in trying to bring the jury system and American, litigation practice to China. And they came here. I don't know if you met them while they were here. A few months ago. Was a managing partner of a really big law firm, 3,000-man law firm, and a judge, or rather a law professor in one of the big law schools. Yeah, and they were here looking at the American system. So they're out and about. And my sense of it is that in the China prestige department, lawyers are very prestigious because they are the stewards of finding the rule of law. They are the stewards of setting the pace on how.
I should correct you on that. I'll give you my thoughts.
Please.
Well, Jay, there's some fundamental differences in how lawyers operate in the U.S. and how we are governed, how we self-govern ourselves. And the very difference in China, I found that many of these big, large law firms are not large law firms. They are a confederation of small law firms. They don't share discussions among the different partners. They keep it within their own selves. So there can be conflicts of interest running the firm, and they don't even know that. They don't have a system. The second thing is, it's very important, you got to realize it, is that they have no governance except they take a pledge to the Communist Party. Everything that the Communist Party says is a state secret. They have to turn over, or they have to withhold aid from a Chinese company.
Every China lawyer?
Every China lawyer, okay? And they don't have the attorney-client work product privilege. So that, I think, is very, very important for international clients. And I've been in situations where Chinese lawyers talk among different law firms of what their clients are doing and what they have, and where we would not.
So your secret information is compromised.
It's compromised, and people don't realize it. Second thing that's most important, they don't have that same attorney-client work product privilege. That's all compromised. And I've been in the meetings where we have to work with local counsel in matters where we have to appear in court, where the first thing a prestigious law firm says, okay, how much are you going to pay us? And pay for what? Well, we need so much to pay the judge. We have to bribe the judge.
Oh.
And we say, sorry, here's a door, we're not going to work with you. And
Well, you can't. You can't.
We will not.
It's
We'll
serious,
not.
but it's a legal problem.
It's a
isn't it?
legal problem because,
Yeah.
we cannot do that. We would be violating Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and so forth.
Yeah.
And yet it's done. And so what I'm saying to you is that, the Western side, you got to be careful. If you work in a Chinese law firm, I'm not saying all of them are like that. We have like one or two lawyers that we work with that I feel very confident that they're ethical on board. But a lot of them are not. And a lot of firms know what they do is they will buy a whole bunch of iPhones and give it as gifts to the court, judges, things like that. And they will do that. And so there's a different way that things are done. But again, I think that in the long run, that's not good for the practice. It's not good for the law firms.
Not good for
and,
China.
And not good for China, and not good for the client.
Yeah.
So I always am careful, even though, bring lawyers out of China, they will fit in, but when they go back to China, the environment is different. I met lawyers that have come out of practice, got a U.S. license. When they went back to China, first thing to do is they fit into the environment. Okay, how much are you going to give to bribe the judge? The Guanxi thing. And again, I think we have to, as international lawyers, and international clients, we stand firm. We don't cross that line. That's the only way the practice will change.
Yeah.
And I think it's changing, Jay. So hopefully that will, things will change. But again, that's something that I think is very troublesome. And I think many lawyers don't realize it. You think you're enthralled that they're changing. But again, it's very different there. The culture part, plays into play. And but anyway, so
Okay, well, we can take a break now. A little deep breathing would be okay. Yeah. Rusell Leu, an American, a Hawaii attorney practicing with a firm called Shepherd Mullen in Beijing, getting to see the landscape there in every way. Here we are in Asia in Review. I'm Jay Fidel. We're talking about a new time, a new tone, a new world in China. We'll be right back.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
We're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidel here on Think Tech, and as part of the Think Tech series, we have Asia in Review, a new time in China with Rusell Leu, who is an American attorney practicing with a firm called Shepherd Mullen in Beijing, and learning and having such an interesting life. You've been doing that for about 10 years now. I think it's wonderful, wonderful. We all go with you, Rusell. You know, you're our agent, our vehicle, our facilitator, our pipeline. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
thank you, Jay.
So anyway, judges. What about judges? Are they independent, or are judges, just part of a system that where judges are, you can have them if you want?
It's an interesting question, Jay, you brought that up. About 20 years ago, I met a Chinese judge who came here to study at the UH for a year at the College of Business. And, I would hear the stories about how judges have to be coached by the party about sensitive decisions, how they want to see a certain result. Lately, things are starting to change. There's been a movement within the judicial circles in China for the independence of judges. And more, that's becoming a popular idea that's evenly, openly discussed.
But it's independence from the party is what it is.
Independence from the party, to make their own decisions.
Yeah, the party would have been the problem. The party would have come to him and said, look, we made you a judge in the first place. You got to listen to us. And they would have given him a result.
Right. And that's, there's a cultural notation that people don't realize. In the Chinese world, everything is managed. The whole concept of family. The parents manage your life growing up. And that's why many students in China, they're not really ready for the world at 18 or 22. They're like, in some sense, really...
Even with the one-child policy.
Even with the one-child, even much more. The word is called guanli, and they're managed, and everyone knows that. So the courts are managed, family, the kids are managed, everything's
So
managed.
power is more important when in a place where everything is, where you expect everything to
And
be managed.
it's actually cultural. It's like even in the local Chinese world here, the elders manage everything else, even though the younger people may have better ideas, they're managed. But that's a cultural concept again.
It's not necessarily a bad concept. I mean, it's there's a lot of very smart people doing very important things under that system.
That's right.
It's a training system. It's a education system in its own way, I suppose.
Well, I think because the independence of judges, because judges now are being picked having some experience, and with that, a lot of practicing, a lot of them understand it better. In the old days, it was simply former PRC military officials, or you went to judges school and you didn't do anything but learn to be a judge. But now I think things are changing. People have to be qualified to be a judge. And I think, so this has led to a movement called the Independence of Judges. And we're going to see more of that. That's openly spoken, and it's nothing that is suppressed by the government.
Good. Happy to hear that. And it sounds like part of a process, a progression where, everything sort of takes on a more responsible role, that the trust of the people, the public, is more justified. There's not as much corruption or manipulation, and better ethics, I suppose. But it sounds also like it's going to take a while before it has the effect we'd like to see it have. Am I right?
That's correct, and I think one of the things that maybe this side of the world you don't see and understand is that one thing that's government policy now is they want to move the companies outside of China to become next Coca-Cola, next multinational. That's the next step for the
China
evolution.
companies.
Yes, evolution of their economic world.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, who's going to do this? Who's going to make the most profound changes? Well, who's going to make the most profound changes are the new young Chinese who is going to the U.S. to attend college, to get to law school, taking a JD program, and we're seeing more and more of that. And this is the force that's going to come back, and then understand both the worlds, feel comfortable being in America, and be comfortable with disclosure and transparency, comfortable playing the games, the rules of the game, because they've been in America, they've been playing with the rules of the games. There's nothing so much now that they feel less confident. I think there's a confidence issue with the older generation where they don't know, they're ignorant, so they tend to stay in the same world. So hopefully that's going to be a big game changer in a few years, where you will see Chinese companies going abroad because they have the human resources.
Well, I mean, it's extraordinary what happens. I mean, you're talking about, say, lawyers or business students who go not only to the U.S. but to Europe and take these LLM programs. They get their basic education in China, and then they take an LLM program. A lot of lawyers here. A lot of programs, in the Western world are designed for these students. And that's how they make money. The schools make money with these LLM programs, and what?
It's changing.
Exchanging.
It's changing because
it's changing.
The LLM is viewed less favorably. Now the view is JDs. A JD
really?
program,
Okay.
And I'm amazed because one
That's
of my
interesting. It's one step further.
One step further, and I'll tell you, I'm much more worried about our kids here. They can't compete. I've had a student who I taught at as you know, I teach law at a law school in a university in China, and one of my students, who I never really noticed in class, wrote to me and says, "Professor Leu, I'm happy to get in touch with you. I heard this is happening. I'm looking for a job, and you can give me some pointers." So I said, "Okay, what have you been doing? What's your scores?" And he said, "Well, my first year in my JD at UW in Washington, I was straight A. Here's my transcript. He was straight A, contract, property, torts, law, everything. He was invited to a law review. Then he transferred second year.
This is as an undergraduate law student or a graduate law student?
No, he had graduated from in China, it's a civil law program, so it's undergraduate law study. So they take that, and then they take the Chinese bar, and they become a Chinese.
Then they come to U.S.
And they come to U.S.
The LLM program includes the undergraduate program, so it's as if you're taking, right?
Well, no, they apply to JD now.
Or JD, okay.
The JD program.
But you still have undergraduate courses in the LLM and the JD program. So what happens is the fellow who's getting the degree has a very wide understanding of American law.
He's a very wide understanding, and he's competing with a regular JD program. He's not an LLM.
Yeah.
So so he got a straight A, and then I asked him, okay, well, what are you doing at Columbia? He was a straight A student, Harlan Fisk Scholar. And this is incredible because he's competing with every other smart, sharp cookie in America.
He's becoming an American lawyer.
He's becoming an American lawyer. So this is the kind of change that you'll see where it's part of globalism. You'll see that, and hopefully you'll take the values that he's learned in the JD program and the U.S. law, take it back in China and change it. Because what's happening in the past in China is that the CEO of SOE will not listen to the general counsel. And so a lot of things are shady, they're not accountable for it, they lose money. The thinking is very different.
He can show them a better way.
He can show them a better way, and we'll see that because not only the lawyers but also the business people, they're going to great business schools and coming back to China.
It's the MBA, runs the same parallel.
Same parallel.
But and we've been noticing in science too. These students come, they already have a science degree in China, they come to the U.S., they do very well in graduate programs and research in the U.S. I mean, we have many students like this at UH, but they're in every college, and the best colleges too. And they are staying here, and they are doing the research here as career. And sometimes they go back, but sometimes they stay. So it's it's a two-pronged sword. There's two things happening. First, you got to know. I mean, you can correct me, but I think the Chinese government is encouraging them to do this, giving them the visas. Saying go do it. The Chinese professional organizations, like the law organizations, like the law firms, go take an LLM. It's good for you, and they do. They go by the thousands, and science, business, law. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. And they're all over this country and they're all over Europe doing this. And so you say, what's the long plan on this? Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you that part of the long plan is you have the lawyers come back to China and they can deal with multinational issues. That's mm-hmm. great. Mm-hmm. And those firms now will really have a better understanding of how to do trade in every continent in the world. They'll also have better scientists because they have the benefit of the science in two countries that way. And they'll have business guys who are likewise, like the lawyers, completely global. It's fabulous. Mm-hmm. So they'll be here because a lot of stay here, get papers and stay here, and then they'll be there. It's really amazing what's happening. And we don't have that. Mm-hmm. We can't compete with them. Our students have a lot of trouble competing. What is it, about the Chinese student, graduate student and the like, or maybe the JD student, who comes here that makes him so competitive, that makes him so formidable against the ordinary American student? Is he smarter? What is it?
I knew you were going to ask me this question. First, let me correct you on the government in China does nothing to do to push them out.
Why is it happening then?
It's happening because it's a market economy. And the Chinese educational system cannot serve the best, right? And even the mediocre ones, which would be, they'll come out to the U.S. and they'll do fantastic. There's not enough colleges to serve the number of people. As you know, the economy gets better. People have a better lifestyle. They're getting more educated. But then all of a sudden, there aren't enough colleges to serve them.
So why don't people establish colleges then?
Well, the problem is that, for these students, the colleges like Beijing University, Tsinghua, Renmin, they're too far and few, okay? These are schools that have been heavily invested by the government for many years, these universities, so people want to go to schools. And remember, you have to be in the 0.001% cream of the crop to get there. Even if you're in that top 1% country nationwide, you may not get in there. So what's happening is parents have already figured out when these kids are in middle school, they will know if the child is ready to cut it in society, in the school system. So if they're not, they make plans to take these kids to ramp up their English, to go outside of China. They're saving the money to go to U.S. colleges. And that
even high schools now.
Even high schools now. And so that's changing. And so you've got all these kids now very smart that they go outside. Now let's rewind this thing. And why are the kids so smart? It's because their curriculum is much more rigorous than American curriculum. And they start at a young age from that first grade.
With serious
courses. And they've got a mission. And they've got hunger that they know that this will take them to the next level. And they are much more, I think they're very conscientious. So it's like this. When my law students have a class, if I tell them, well, let's take off this night, instead they get upset. If I said, I'm going to invite you guys to listen to a talk and a speaker that's going to talk about this certain thing, or do you guys want to watch a Super Bowl game or some soccer game, they will take the intellectual the session. They welcome that. And
so it's not necessarily that the Chinese are smarter than the rest of us. It's that they're more motivated.
They're much more motivated.
They come with better credentials, better experience, better educational experience, and that's why they do well in school. That's why they focus in school. Yeah.
They focus a lot more in school.
Their parents really want them to be educated too.
Yes.
People think that because the one-child policy, that parents are not dedicated, devoted to their kids. No, it's not true. They're more dedicated than ever. They want their kids to do really well.
And let me correct you also. They're getting rid of the one-child policy.
I know that. Yeah. Well,
but so what's happening is that these kids are very focused. They have a lot of desire, and they have a mission.
What's the mission exactly?
The mission is they know that they have to need this education. They have to have good English to get a good job. Because one day they're going to come back and they're going to take care of their parents. They don't have a safety net.
That's where I get a little lost on that. These scientists, they're amazing. They're brilliant. and they're involved, 24/7 in their science. They're so committed. And they stay here. They get citizenship and stay here. What is their mission? Is their mission merely to serve themselves and their families and make money and make science? Or is their mission to come back someday to China and, serve their families and their country in China? I mean, is there a sort of a thought of returning for these immigrants who stay in the U.S.?
The thought is a better life for the family.
Wherever.
That's why they've gone all over the world, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cultural thing. Years ago, the restaurants, that was a way out. So you can find Chinese restaurants in every place around the world. And again, so it's a thing where it's a better life. They're looking for a better life. It's not so much I'm patriotic or I'm have to go back, but it's more wherever I can get the business, wherever.
And it's clear they can, so yes. That's why not. So I want to sort of do a segue with you, because in a few minutes we won't be out of time, and just to repeat that I'd like to meet with you again and talk about how Hawaii, can engage with China, what Hawaii should be doing. We didn't have time for any of that this time, but next time, Rusell, I hope I can get you back here for that. But let me ask you my segue question. My segue question is, are you seeing American students coming to China and doing the same thing as all these Chinese students are doing in America? Are you seeing that? Is there any kind of balance there, or is this a one-way street?
It's a one-way street. I see a lot of Europeans, Africans, Japanese now, and Koreans all going to China to the language. I find very few Americans. And I'm glad you asked the question. I'm involved with a program that's a national program that I'm working on. And basically, we go to our different home communities in the U.S., look for sponsors, and we're looking then to find kids who come from disadvantaged backgrounds to bring them to China to study for 3-4 weeks.
What a gift.
And then bring them back and make sure they're placed locally in an environment here in schools where they have Chinese language offered, so they continue it. And it's important because somebody at Hawaiian Airlines had told me they're having a hard time finding local stewardesses who can speak Chinese. So that human resources is
They
very
got the
important.
They got the flight, but they don't have the people who can speak Chinese.
So again, it's a thing that needs to be done, and we'll talk in the next segment. It's very important because the travel patterns of Chinese, around the world, they come in herds and they move quickly if they don't feel that it's a tourist-friendly place. But I'm not saying to turn this island into everybody speaking Chinese. No. I don't think you need to do that. And I have some other thoughts about what needs to be done fairly quickly.
I know you do, and I that's why it's delicious for us to have. I'm looking forward for us to have another conversation dedicated just to that. What does Hawaii need to do, to prepare itself to encourage the Chinese to come here? This is such an important question, because it seems clear that unless we affirmatively do something, they're not going to come, they're not going to beat a path to our door. We're going to have to take affirmative action.
Well, if you're a marketing major, you learn the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. And we have an issue that's a product issue and a promotion issue, which I'd like to discuss in the next segment.
Yeah.
And I see that it's very important, that it needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And it's critical because they're coming starting January 15th. Air China flies in.
The direct flights.
Direct flights, and then the big test is going to be the Chinese New Year. That's going to be January 29th, when everybody leaves China to travel. And the question is, do we have our act together? Do we have our product together? When they see the product, if it's not what they think has been promoted outside to them, then we have problems.
Rusell, this is so fabulous. We have to have this conversation. As soon as this show is over, and as soon as we go off the air, I want to make a date with you so you can come back and we can talk about this in luxurious detail.
Thank you, Jay.
That's Rusell Leu, American attorney, Hawaii attorney, practicing in Beijing for 10 years already. He's now with the firm of Shepard Mullen there, a multinational firm. This is Asia in Review. I'm Jay Fidel. We've been talking about a new time in China. Next time we'll talk about a new time in Hawaii, to make us ready for a new time from China. Thank you,
Jay.
Rusell.
Thank you, Jay.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Sai Jin.
Sai Jin.